Hello everyone, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our new webinar series where we listen, learn, thrive together. And today we have a hot topic actually, is our microbiome. And we'll also learn how it's changing from day to day and within years. We'll have a true professional in here, Francisco, who will help us to dive into this topic. And he is microbiome and bioinformatics specialist with expertise in aging research. Obtained his Ph.D. in biology of aging from the Max Planck Institute, Cologne, Germany. Lovely place, I bet.
Lovely place, yes, it is.
Focusing his study in changes of the gut microbiome during aging and how it affects the health and longevity. And he leads the collaboration between BioAro and University of Calgary to develop new AI tools.
That's right.
Before we'll proceed forward, I encourage everyone to type their questions as they will appear in the chat. We're constantly monitoring them and we'll be glad to answer all of them. Well, not me, it's up to Francisco. So I will definitely bring all to them, so feel free to challenge.
Feel free, definitely.
It will be fun. And let's start our learning. We had discussed a couple times before what is microbiome and how important it's for our health, but and it was mostly focused in the gut. But microbiome is not only gut. And maybe, Francisco, you can tell us a little bit more about microbiome and what is it?
Yeah, for sure. That's a fascinating topic for me. So the microbiome, or the microbiota basically, it's the whole microbial community that live within us. So in different body parts. So it's on the skin, it's on the gastrointestinal tract mainly, and also in the oral cavity, for example. So the microbiome, or the microbiota, was said it's whole community, so it contains bacteria, archaea, viruses, and small eukarya.
People start logging archaea part.
Yeah. and that's the whole microbial community, so all the bacteria, viruses that live within us. And the microbiome, it's all of the genetic content that that microbial community possess. So all of the genes that make the viruses, that make the microbes, and all of those genetic content that all of these microbial community possess, that's the microbiome.
Okay, well, that's pretty extensive. And there is actually something that I'm curious about. So we talk about microbiome, but people are more aware of the term microflora.
Yeah.
Is there any difference? Are they similar or they're completely different? What is
yes there's like a debate between the microflora, microbiota, and then microbiome. So I would say the microbiota and microflora are the same concept, of the same community. So this defines whole microbes, basically viruses, bacteria, fungi. So it's like the bacteria per se, right? And the microbiome is all the genetic content that it links to this microbial community.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's very cool. So now I can technically tell more of a microflora rather than microbiome. Yeah. Despite that, there's lots of people on YouTube bringing the microbiome right now up. So it's super good if you touch this topic. I will learn a lot along with you guys. And what is the importance of the microflora, microbiome, microbiota, even now that we have 3 terms now for this, for our overall health? For example, how good is to disturb our microbiota while having a rapid, like often showers, right? It's technically shads away some of the species from our skin, right? Or let's say if you're living in a sterile environment, right? Some people prefer to like clean with Lysol and have lots and lots of germs killed, especially after COVID. It's just something that, I don't know, become a habit of many people.
Yeah.
So how does like living in such conditions can affect our microbiome and the health in general?
Yeah, well, it is really important. So the microbiota, it is really important for our overall health. So microbiota like actually participate in multiple physiological process within us. So let's say metabolism, like nutrition and food intake. Well, food intake and nutrition. Also, it's involved in the maturation and the activation of the immune system. Also plays part in our behavior, and also recently it has been discovered that it plays a major role in aging and longevity. So the microbiota plays a major role in our physiology. So we are considering like the human body like a super organism, because it's the human body plus trillions of bacteria and microbial cells that live within us.
When you're listening to those numbers, like trillions of bacteria, just like we just have 7 billion of people living, but we have trillions of bacteria on each and every person. Like,
exactly.
Just nothing.
So altogether, like it's a super organism that it's facing all of the environmental perturbation that we face day by day, and based on this, so it is important that we keep this microbial community in a good balance. So this good balance of the microbiome is called eubiosis. Right? So if this microbial community is in good balance, so we have all of these benefits of the immune system, of the nutrition, metabolism, and the mental health, aging, and longevity. But when there are specific perturbations that disturb this microbial community in
like often showers?
Exactly. Like often showers, or probably it could be like the antibiotic treatment, for example, or a drastic change in a diet, in a high fat or high sugar diet, for example, that disturb the microbial community in a bad way. Let's put it that way. And that produced an imbalance in the microbial composition. So this is a decrease of the microbial species. So in a good shape microbiome, we have a lot of species living together. But in dysbiosis, which is called an imbalance of the microbiome, this number of species start to decrease. And then that is the onset of different diseases.
Okay, so basically, just to refine whatever, if we have a great variability, this is good.
Exactly.
But if we have decrease of variability, not the number of microorganisms that are living, but variability of the microorganism, this is what's actually causing the diseases.
Exactly.
Good to know, guys. Okay, we have one question over here. Should we use one over the other, microbiome versus microflora?
Well, mostly in all of the literature that I read, which is in scientific journals, most of the people, most of the authors of those publications refers to the microbiota. Microflora, it's rarely used, but it's also accepted. So both of them, they say it's interchangeable. But most of the scientific journals use the term microbiota.
Moral of the story, if we want to sound smart, we use the microbiota. If we want to sound as not from a scientific community, we can use microflora. Okay, we have one more question. Can you shed some light on health concept? If you can just briefly describe what exactly you mean, meanwhile we'll be moving forward and we can answer that. One Health.
One Health. Yeah,
yes.
I understand that this One Health is like holistic overview of the microbiome, let's say at the organism level, let's say as a human, and then as a human, then in the community and in the ecosystem, let's say all the microbiome that now it's living in the ground, or it's living in the marine ocean, for example. As part of my postdoc at the University of Calgary, I'm also working with marine microbiome in the Arctic. So we are trying to integrate this concept of microbiome as a whole thing, like an ecosystem, right? That it like works together to bring balance to individual, but also to the whole ecosystem.
Okay. Well, that's a good insight. I have another question. So we've been talking about this difference and diversity of the microbiome, but it's more of based on the variety. But that variety can change over time, right? Over a day or something. But
Yeah.
Can you shed a light on how our microbiome changing? Is it like within days, months, and what is a healthy change? What is the bad change? Maybe you can debrief something on that.
Yeah, well, our microbiome change all the time. So if the microbiome is, for example, the gut microbiome, it's completely different when you wake up and when you go to sleep. So because the microbiome is also linked to the circadian rhythm, right? So this circadian rhythm is like all of the molecular process that happen in our body that it's guiding through the sunlight, right? So then the microbiome change mildly day to day if we, let's say, have a constant diet, like a lifestyle. But if we change our diet for example, from high sugar, high fat diet to a high fiber diet, for example, our microbiome will completely change. We'll adapt, we rearrange, and then the microbiome will be completely different after we change to the diet. So day to day, our microbiome mildly change, but it's not major changes will probably drive a dysbiosis, as for example, like taking antibiotics or in the presence of a pathogen bacteria that invade our gut system, for example.
Okay. Well, we have one more question. So, does the now that we briefly touched the topic of changes, right? How rapidly how drastically our microbiome changes with age?
Mm-hmm.
Given that you're an age specialist, right?
Well, that's a really interesting, fascinating question that I'm being investigating during my PhD, and then I'm trying to do the same thing here at BioAro. It's that well, we know that with age, the microbiome changed drastically. So from the data with birth to the 3 years old, so the whole microbial community, in our gut and our skin changed dramatically. So it like environmental input can definitely make a huge change in the microbiome, because of microbiome is not well established yet because the immune system is also learning and starting to get mature. So this microbiome and immune system comes really together, and then because the onset of life, we are still learning in terms of the immune system, also the microbiome is learning and then start to build itself. So after when we reach adulthood, our microbiome is well established. So it is well established, and then small perturbations, as I say, if one day you just change the diet, just one day or 1 or 2 days, it doesn't have any big impacts on your microbiome population. But then if we decide to change drastically to diet, or we decide to do more exercise, or if we decide to live in another country, then the microbiome will adapt and then shift to these new environmental conditions. So that is what happened during adulthood. It's pretty stable, but then if we experience some major perturbation from the environment, then the microbiome will adapt. But then what happened is with aging is that when you are reaching the 50s, 60s, your 60s, the immune system starts to fail, right? It's a normal aging process. And then, as I said, the immune system is linked to the microbiome. So this immune system starts to fail. The immune system helps also to prevent that bacteria overpopulate our system. So then when the immune system, they say the quality control system of your intestine and other parts of your body start to decrease, then the microbes start to compete between them. So which one are going to be which one are going to overpopulate the system, right? So when one of those bacteria actually overpopulate your intestine, for example, then it's called a dysbiosis, right? So then there is no balance between the bacteria species that are in the ecosystem. Then one of them overgrow, and then that produce pro-inflammatory situations in the system, and then that it's the onset of age-related diseases.
Okay. So the dysbiosis related to the drop on the immune system, related to age, is what caused the onset for some of the age-related diseases. Good to know. Do we have any questions? Well, just as we related the age-related diseases, is there anything that we can do to intervent those?
Yeah, this is pretty also fascinating to me, because there are a lot of things that we can do on a single day, and then it's not too late to start doing those changes to, let's say, counteract the aging process. So the microbiome, as I say, is really affected by environmental perturbations, right? Mm-hmm. So diet, lifestyle. So lifestyle means like if you exercise or not, if you are stressed or not. Also affected by the mental health. Also, it's affected by pharmacological agents, antibiotics, and also it's affected by your genetics, right? So in terms of this diet and lifestyle changes that you can do, I would say, like, as again, the high fiber diet will increase the diversity in your microbial community, and this prevents the dysbiosis. That dysbiosis is the onset of the age-related disease, right? So high fiber diets, also do exercise every day. Yeah, so those kind of things are well known to increase diversity in the microbiome, and then prolongs lifespan in model organisms and also in humans.
Wow. Okay. Well, just as a part of the curiosity, because we have people who are listening us, right? And we keep telling with age-related diseases. Mm-hmm. But what we mentioned before is that the dysbiosis, right? The decrease in diversity causes some of the inflammation. So what would be like just a brief example of couple age-related diseases, just to catch the eye from the people who are like listening, right? Because that some terms would be more familiar to them rather than a general.
Yeah. So, for example, Alzheimer's disease. So there's a lot of studies about like the relationship between the microbiome and the onset of Alzheimer's disease. So it's linked to dysbiosis of specific bacteria species that then send some toxins and some metabolites to the brain, and then this is the proliferation of these aggregates, protein aggregates in the brain, right? So this is a pretty clear example where one bacteria species or strain in your gut can directly link to the onset of Alzheimer's disease, for example. Also, there's a case in cardiovascular diseases also. So there are some metabolites in the intestine that promote, or the metabolites and the microbe that produce the microbiome that actually use as biomarkers for cardiovascular disease, for example. And it's also related to elderly people.
So just to clear about the cardiovascular part, so the microbiome produces some markers telling that the elderly people have cardiovascular disease, or the microbiome produce some compartments which are affecting the cardiovascular system.
Exactly.
Oh, the second
one. Exactly.
So the microbiome produces some compounds which are then gets to our bloodstream and have an onset for the cardiovascular. Wow.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Well, we better take care of whatever we're living with. So we have one more question in here. A lot of discussion about the microbiome change and aging. Anything you can say on that? I believe we just answered the question for that, but if you have something specific, we are more than welcome to bring it to the discussion.
Well, I forgot to mention to answer that question too, is that during aging, so we mentioned that the diversity decrease, right? This diversity of the microbiome decrease and then produce dysbiosis, right? And then also another important, let's see, thing that happens during aging is that the reducing this diversity in the microbes mostly are beneficial bacteria. So those bacteria that we know that are important for the immune system, important for metabolism, so those ones decrease, and then the opportunistic pathogenic, so these ones that those bacteria, the bad bacteria means that they are fine with us, they don't mess with us, but then if they find opportunity to overgrow, then they will do it, and then will create a disease.
Like bullies in the school. If you have little bullies in the school, the crowd is just like suppressing them, but there are too many bullies. Oh, this is the issue.
Yeah.
So the question is, can a particular bacteria indicate faster aging or slower aging? Oh, this is interesting.
That's an interesting question. Yeah, well,
we asked for the challenge.
Yes. Yeah. The thing is that the way that we studied the microbiome and aging is that we have a cohort of centenarians or like all elderly people, and then we sequence the microbiome, and then we compare those microbial communities with a healthy non-elderly people, right? And then we put it side to side, and then we check which are the difference between them. So if they're the same bacteria species or not, and if they're the same bacteria species, so if the abundance of one bacteria species is different in the elderly people or not. So most of the result that's out there is changes on the relative and the abundance of a specific microbes, instead of like one single microbe that colonizes the individual and then it's produced aging.
Yeah, we just recalled that we have 3 billions of them living with us. So yeah, it makes lots of sense.
Yeah.
But it actually does make a lot of sense for me, given that one little bacteria does not really contribute a lot for us, but it's just the difference on like how many you have and how much of this metabolites or anything that they're producing,
exactly,
which can cause some onsets. So
exactly, and because all of the microbes, I mean, they are really tight in this ecosystem, right? They are literally next to each other, right?
I don't know how you're doing this.
They're one cell next to each other, right? So if one starts to secrete some metabolites, affect directly to the other bacteria, and then they secrete other things in response to this one, and then it's like a cascade, right? And then also the host respond to that cascade, so there's like cross-feeding process all the time. So it will be nice to find one single bacteria species that actually is the one that could extend the lifespan. Some research in model organisms such as mice and fish, worms, they could identify some bacteria species or at least some metabolites that can extend the lifespan of those model organisms, but in humans, there's need to be study on that. Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned about the model organisms. Is there any particular fascinating research that you can bring it up? Given that you have a scientific background, I think that we can benefit of some of the innovations in here.
Yeah, well, I would like to share the project that
You've been
I'm working during my PhD.
Oh, that would be lovely.
When I arrived at my PhD in Germany, so there was the research group that I joined, they just recently published that fecal microbiome transfer. So this means that transfer the gut microbes from one individual to another. So if you do that from young individuals to all individuals, that will extend the lifespan of the whole individual, right? This has been done in fish, and also it has been done in mice, and both model organisms respond at the same.
Wow. Okay, that's actually
extending
pretty
the
cool.
lifespan.
Danke schön. This is the all I remember from my high school German, but
Yeah.
so basically, and if you would ever estimate, you would say that it's because the increase of diversity.
Exactly.
Oh,
exactly. So one of the things that they found is that they will longitudinally tracking the microbiome changes of fish and mice, right? So before the fecal microbiome transplant, right? So they were showing that the diversity of the microbes start to decrease. But then when they do the transfer, the microbiome or the microbiome community start increasing its diversity, and then this probably increase or promotes the lifespan of the host. Yeah.
Okay. The moral of the story: everything, the diversity prevails. So better make sure that this is something that we can do. So we touched. Now that we have touched the topic about longevity.
Yeah.
And the health span, right? So it's mostly health span that people, I believe, underestimate, because living longer is one thing, living healthy and long, this is a different
Exactly.
thing. So is there anything that we can do for our microbiome in order to contribute to our health span and live healthier longer?
Yeah.
That we can start right now, and everyone can start right now.
Yeah, everyone can start right now. It doesn't matter of the age.
Eating less of the fried chicken can be a cause.
For example, right? So it is well documented, it's well reported. It's American diet. It's American diet, which is like
well, I'm from
fat.
Europe.
Yeah, like high fat, high fat and high sugar decrease the diversity in the microbiome, right? And it's like bad for the health, right? So then, as I said before, like high fiber diet and then really diverse diet will also improve the diversity in your own community, right? So so yeah, that change in diet and beneficial diet, so Mediterranean diet, for example, also it's been.
So what about the Mediterranean diet?
Yeah.
So my question would be, right? We have lots and lots of different food, and change, yes, we can do it. But what would be more beneficial products, like compared one over another? So I heard that kimchi is like, I love it. Not many people know it, and it's weird that I love it, but it's basically a Korean sauerkraut. Like it's a unique one. It's fermented, and it's red in the color because they add some spices, but it's extremely tasty. If we will compare this to, let's say, just a regular cabbage, right? What will be like? What would be the benefits of having fermented versus non-fermented? Drinking milk versus drinking the yogurt, or
yeah. Well, yeah, it's true. I mean, there are two. Briefly. So there are two.
They're not diving into science.
Two different types of, let's say, food, as you said. I like fermented, which means that there are a lot of bacteria, live bacteria that are doing all this fermentation process, and then regular food without this fermentation process, right? So this brings you to the body these lived organisms that actually can colonize or can help to promote homeostasis in your body in comparison with a sterile meal that doesn't produce any beneficial effects for this.
Okay. Is it good on that? The fermented one?
I mean, is it good? Is it good? Of course. Is it good because it helps you with promoting this homeostasis in your gut, but also like a plant-based diet is also good for you. So because a lot of fiber, as I said, the microbes actually degrade all these complex hydrocarbons that are present in plants. So it's also beneficial. So both, let's say, it's beneficial. If you ask me like which one, like both of them.
I'm not asking you to choose. Really I'm not one of those people who will ask you choose one over another. Well, do we have any questions on different food and how it can bring diversity to our microbiome or microflora? or microbiota, any at this point. I'll be gladly answering that. But you also mentioned that exercising somehow can contribute.
Yes.
Can you debrief me on that as well?
Well, there's an interesting part of that because exercise is good for your overall health, right?
I know, which is why it's slightly interesting for me to know because I can understand how food can affect because this is directly feeding myself and billions of bacteria that living with me, right? But for the exercises, I'm benefiting. They don't do anything. How does it work?
One of the things is that during exercise, you actually activate your digestive process, right? You activate the MMC complex, right? So
what is MMC complex?
The MMC complex is basically how the intestine actually move, right? So all the intestine starts to move when you do exercise. So it is interesting that when you do exercise and then all your intestines start to move, then you prevent the overgrowth of bacteria. So because there is food in there, so there is carbohydrates in the food, right? So but then if you start to move all of them to all of the part of the body, then you prevent that in one single spot the bacteria overgrow and these produce dysbiosis, for example.
Okay, good to know. I never ever put this thought into this. Trust me. I never thought that actually doing exercises and moving can bring this contribution to our microbiome. And I believe it also contributes to diversity, right? Because you're technically moving the species from one place to another.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's just a common knowledge. I'm not a microbiology specialist in here. Well, we'll probably leave a call for a couple more questions. But this is all questions that I have for you today. Awesome. And just one more minute, I'm going to try to gather this before I will thank to such a fruitful discussion for today, and knowing that the kimchi actually can bring benefit, and it's not just because I like nice and spicy fermented food. I can bring an argument to the table when someone will be like, "Oh, you're eating that." I'm like, actually, I am extending my health span. You don't know that, but I am working on it right now, right at this moment, by eating this cabbage.
You can give a class on that now.
Oh, yeah. Everyone who will come to my house and tell, oh, yeah, you have such a diverse set of food in here. I'm like, yes, I am increasing your microbiome diversity. So when you will get older, it will decrease the chance of having age-related disease.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's
fascinating,
wonderful.
Right?
It is.
It is fascinating.
Well, I'm very grateful that we have you today. Thank you for such a wonderful conversation and for all this knowledge, because I learned a lot. I believe people learned a lot behind the screen, knowing what they can do in order to increase the diversity.
Yeah.
Exercises, the plant-based food, fermented food, there's lots and lots of options that are available. And well, on behalf of everyone, thanking you to do a trip to this studio and shooting this webinar with us. And I want to thank our audience who were shooting us with the questions today, and actually a very interesting ones. And we're looking to see you on our next webinar, which will be in 2 weeks. Thank you, everyone. I wish you a great evening. Great evening to you. Danke schön. Anything else that we can speak in German? No? No?
I'm almost forgot everything after 3 years.
I know. Well, trust me. If I remember just this word, it's probably, I don't know how much you could forget. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.